to the Ascends at Boston Avenue podcast. My name is Philip Boone, and my co-host is Caitlin Drake. Before we begin, I'd like to state that the views represented in this podcast are those of the individuals in this conversation and not the official position of Boston Avenue United Methodist Church. Today, our guests are Reverend Amy Venable and Reverend Guy Langston. So first, tell us a little bit about your background with the Methodist Church and with confirmation.
I was hoping Guy would go first so then I could figure out how much I wanted to say. Well, I grew up Methodist. My parents met in the Methodist Church, married somewhere else, but joined the Methodist Church and raised their 2 children in the Methodist Church. And we were every Sunday people. We didn't really have a Wednesday service, but we would have come on Wednesday had there been a Wednesday service. All the way through high school, I was a Methodist. When I was in college, I did not attend church at all, almost. I think I went 3 or 4 times, various places, but Sunday morning was the best time to study quietly. I experienced a call to ministry when I was studying abroad in France my junior year of college. And I came back to the States, and that summer I worked for Boston Avenue Church as a college intern and had some wonderful experiences during that time, and that was the summer that I decided I wanted to attend seminary. So eventually I was ordained, and I served 6 years at Boston Avenue Church as an associate doing all kinds of capacities. And then I served 7 years in Norman at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church. And I also served 2 years at Holland Hall Private School, which is an Episcopal school, as their chaplain for age 3 through grade 8. And after 2 years there, I came back to Boston Avenue to work with David Wiggs as associate pastor in charge of pastoral care, and that's where I currently am.
I'm a lifelong Methodist from a little place called Wynnewood in Oklahoma, southern Oklahoma, and just raised in the church. In fact, we grew up right next door to my grandparents, who taught the men and ladies Bible classes for 35 years at the church. So it was just part of us. I can remember ringing the belfry bell in the old frame church that we had as a kid, and going to MYF, going to camp. Except in my sophomore and junior summer, MYF group could pay the scholarship for the 2 kids that needed camp the worst, and they picked Thomas Bragley and myself to go to the camp. At Turner Falls is where we went to camp. Then when I came back from the Army Reserve, they after high school went to college and ended up at East Central, where we're very active in the Wesley Foundation with Reverend Don Nobles and his wife Fran. And in fact, that's where Vicki and I met, was through the Methodist stuff, my wife. And he would have us help him out with youth ministry at First Church in Ada. And my call to ministry came when I found out I could lead kids in Foursquare really well. And so went on from there. My last year in college, I was serving 2 little weekend churches as a lay pastor, and then went into youth ministry for a couple of years. Ended up with a guy named Art McGrew at Sunny Lane Church. And he finally asked me after a year or so, when are you going to go to seminary? And I said, well, my academic career was not that outstanding, and a graduate school is 3 times harder. I don't think I can do it. And he looked at me and said, I did it. Well, I'm as smart as he is. I think I'll try it. So we went to Perkins, and I would have been on academic probation for a year had I gone there. But we went to Phillips, so the seminary in Enid. Broadhurst here in Tulsa had financed the next 10 Methodists that walked in the door for a half scholarship. It was divine providence. And so that's where I went to seminary. Since then, we've served churches all over the Oklahoma Conference, from Boise City to Pryor and all around. The last place I was, before I retired, was in full appointment, was at Okmulgee at the church there. And have been helping with confirmation here at Boston Avenue for the last 11 years. So
And when
me.
Guy was about 30 years old, he was the dean of Camp Egan, where I was as a 7th grader.
And look how she turned out.
Had a profound effect on
Are
me.
you taking credit or blame for that?
Yeah, right. Credit.
So in the confirmation conversation, I was not raised Methodist.
Yeah.
I was confirmed in the Catholic Church, and I know that there are some differences. So for me, confirmation was like a really heavy re-upping on baptismal promises, but as an individual, and a commitment to remain in the Catholic faith for the rest of your life. I'm not an outstanding example of following through on that. But what is confirmation within the Methodist faith? How would you define it?
To me, it's making firm the decision that was made on your behalf when you were baptized as a baby. And so that's what the confirm is, to make firm with that decision. And so it's a chance for the young people to decide for themselves if that has really happened. And our whole family promised that we would, the whole congregation promised that we would, but now it's up to us. And they can say yes or no to that, but in general, that's what it is. And it's not rebaptizing or anything like that. It's just reconfirming that decision.
It's also a wonderful opportunity for Christian education. It's probably the one time in childhood and youth that we actively do an intensive focus on learning the basic tenets of the faith, and kids and their families pledge to be there. Everybody has to miss once in a while, but they pledge to be there majority percentage of the time. And so you get an intensive education about the basic beliefs that your church espouses.
Well, the kids here at Boston Avenue are real lucky with confirmation, because it's from the middle of August till the middle of May, the whole school year, they're in the Sunday school hour in confirmation. And if you're a 6th grader, that's where you go. And they're just really lucky to be able to have that kind of emphasis. And like Amy said, they focus on the basic things of the faith and are asked to own that, because before that everybody's told them stuff. Now they're asked, what do you think? And we wait for their answer. Yeah.
To me, it's a parallel of what many cultures do at about that age, some sort of rite of passage, whether it's your bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah or your vision quest or something. That's a fertile age for that kind of decision and thought process, and kind of a trek through the wilderness, as it were, as you say, Guy, from August to May, of time kind of set apart from the usual routine and reflecting on what we believe.
Yeah, it's just, there's not a set catechism like you had to learn and be able to say back and all that, but it's more like the kids for themselves are working out their own faith position.
You mentioned that here at Boston Avenue, it's basically the school year, where when I was in 6th grade, it was maybe a 6-week span. And most churches, not very many United Methodist churches, do an August through April type of confirmation. Can you tell me how it looks for the confirmation? How does the year set out from August through May? How the confirmation at Boston Avenue, how it begins, and then just what the year kind of looks like for the confirmands?
The first thing is the covenant service, where the kids, their parents, and their friends in faith are our mentors that they'll have for the last half of the year. All come together and promise to function and be there and so forth, and make commitments to that covenant to show up. And then every Sunday school hour, then they come for a class or a presentation or something. In the fall, they go on a retreat. In fact, the kids go next weekend here this year, and to Camp Egan. And 2 or 3 things. One is, a lot of the kids have been to Camp Egan through other programs, But a lot of them, this is their first time to go to that camp. And so it gets them ready for the district camp in the summer because they've been to Camp Egan. And so that, if you ask them, that'll be a highlight of the whole year, was that overnight trip to Camp Egan. And then in January, we enter the mentor phase, or our friends in faith. And one Sunday out of the month, they're with their friend in faith and discuss, what do you believe about this right now? And they learn one other person in the congregation. Either they already knew or they're learning for the first time, and they end up with a new friend from the congregation. And vice versa, the adult lay people learn the names of the kids, and at least one, and can call their name and recognize them. And so that kind of reflection. Another Sunday out of the month, they're discussing with their folks, their parents, in the same kind of topics. And for a lot of parents, that's revelatory for them. They have to remember when they were 12 and the church and all that. And typically here, the Sunday after Easter, the kids are then asked to come for confirmation, the official formal service in front of the congregation. And so the whole time they've been prepping to answer the questions we ask them. So all they have to do is remember to say, I do or I will. But they've reflected on the depth of that question for a long time. And then there's a celebration at the end of the year as they then are full mid-high kids after that.
So you mentioned kind of the capstone is the service of confirmation, and that is contained within the baptismal covenant outlined in the United Methodist hymnal for anybody who really wants to look up what that service looks like. And within that service, there are places for the congregation to participate. And I'm just curious, why is that? Because I think for some folks, they see faith and making these steps in faith as a very personal decision and a personal journey. Or process. So why is the congregation such a part of that service?
Mm-hmm.
My immediate response is that none of us does our faith in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
And you may think I'm a person of faith and I'm a spiritual person, and it's something very private and personal, and I don't need other people to help me with it. But you do. My father just died 3 weeks ago, and I know that we wouldn't have been able to come through these 3 weeks, my family and I, without the support of the community that is right here. This community happens to be our faith community. But certainly as you grow and mature, whether you're 6th grade or 30 or 50 or 80, it's the people around you who help you sharpen and hone your ideas. And it may be the people around you with whom you disagree that help you hone your ideas of what you actually believe in. So to me, faith is a community effort, no matter how you slice it.
Mm-hmm. We can, if we want to, do baptisms and confirmations on a private basis if somebody needs that or requests that. But it's better when it's done in front of the whole congregation. I can remember a church in southern Oklahoma City that white flight had really hurt that church, and they hadn't had anybody join in over 2 years. And finally this young couple came and brought their new baby to be baptized in the church. And it was like the church got given back to people in the community. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with the confirmation kid. To do it in front of the congregation, it's a communal community doing it.
Earlier you mentioned about confirmation as reaffirming your baptismal promise and your baptism. If you were baptizing at United Methodist Church, how does your standing in the church family change after confirmation?
You get the key to the fancy bathroom.
Parking place.
You get to go to the room where the really good coffee is.
These are jokes.
Really, I tell the kids they are as much United Methodist now because as a part of the confirmation thing, they take the vows of church membership. your prayers, your presence, your gifts, your service, and your witness. And if they said yeah to that, that's as much United Methodist they're ever going to be. But everybody in that room will tell you that that's not the end of things. It's only the beginning. And they're going to and faith to me is pushing back your blinders, opening up new vistas, seeing more things, and deepening your faith. And so it's a point on the journey. It's what it is.
So what about if you are an adult and you come into the Methodist church, maybe were raised in no faith background or a very different faith background. Do you get confirmed, or do you skip some of these steps, or how does that work? Because I know we have kind of a youth-centric confirmation process. Mm-hmm. So what does that look like for a grown-up?
In the other church where I worked for so long, we did have an adult confirmation curriculum that basically my right-hand lady and I just put together based on the youth curriculum and kind of adulted it up for people. We didn't have a ceremony after it was over, but we did go over the basic tenets of belief. And there were so many people in that group who said, wow, nobody ever covered this with me. And I'm glad to finally understand what prevenient grace is and what the order of the four Gospels is and what the difference is, what's different about the Apocrypha based on the rest of the Bible or whatever else. A little bit about church history. And I don't just mean the history of that building, but church history from year 0 going forward, or maybe year 33 going forward. There are opportunities to become baptized and join the church. If you're an adult and you've never been baptized, you've never been a part of a church, we will baptize you if you are not an infant. Methodists do infant baptism, but we don't exclusively do infant baptism. Anyone who comes forward and wants to profess faith, we will baptize you. And once you're baptized, you may be a member of the church. Also, if you've been baptized anywhere else in the Christian family, in any other Christian denomination, we say, oh, you're covered, and then you may join the church.
Yeah, we don't rebaptize anybody. We don't think God made a mistake when you got baptized the first time. We just said, no, that's it, and that's just fine. Somebody that's not anything, I know where I've been in smaller churches across the conference, I'd have to set up either a personal instruction with somebody to do that, or get some resources for them to study, and conversations about that. But you really have to kind of do United Methodist 101 with them somehow. And but then, yeah, majority of the time it's like you said, oh, that's how it is. I believe that. Yeah, it's kind of neat.
Caitlin, I can also kind of answer that. We, even when it goes with older youth as well, a lot of times the older youth, we don't put them with the 6th graders doing confirmation. So if we have 8th, 9th, 10th that has not been confirmed, David and I have talked to them about ways we could either do a special class or we can have them do a project around the United Methodist history. So you work as well with that, not only adults, but if it's an older youth that doesn't necessarily want to be in a class of 6th grade confirmands as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of had to self-instruct around 101 United Methodism because I didn't come from a Methodist background. And so there are some things that I'm still kind of stumbling on that
We all are.
And by the way, advertisement section, we do a class called UM 101 here periodically, seasonally. So be looking for that.
So one of the differences that I've discovered between Methodism and the Catholic faith that I was raised in is around sacraments. So Catholics have many sacraments, and by many I mean 7. And so it was kind of mind-blowing to me to learn that Methodism only has 2. And so in the Catholic faith, confirmation is a sacrament, but it is not in the Methodist Church. Why is that?
Yeah, we just celebrate 2, baptism and communion. And like you said, the confirmation service is in the midst of the baptismal service. And So we just see it as that's a sacrament, and it's a part of that. And so it's just a continuation of that sacrament on a youth level is how I see that. And the other stuff that Catholics have is fine, but we just really do too.
Guy, you've been leading confirmation at Boston Avenue for, I believe you said, 11 years.
Yes, sir.
What are some of the most important things youth learn in confirmation class?
Myself, that this is one of the most lucid, informed group of people that we've ever had. These kids have been enveloped with media their whole being for 12 years. They just really know a lot of things. And these sixth graders are as smart as I was when I graduated from high school now, or more, because they're just informed. They just carry around information and technology and all that stuff. And they are ready to ask deep questions and ready to think about these things, or ready to have the freedom to state their own position. And so I just love watching that happen in the midst of them. And then every year I've had a lay helper with me. And they will tell me every time, I learned more than the kids did. And so that's happened to me 11 times, that every year you rethink things and have to figure out how do you talk about the Trinity to sixth grader, that kind of thing. And it pushes you every time. So, yeah, it's been deepened my faith just to be around this bunch of turkeys.
Do you have any favorite memories while leading confirmation in particular?
Yeah, the overnight retreat to Camp Egan is a highlight to me every time. And one thing that Debbie Peterson, who's been our director for the last 10 years, that would always do is bring a guy called Mr. B. Looney to come. The reason we had B. Looney is because in front of him being this balloon clown guy, he would come in as John Wesley, a full wig, a black flat-brimmed hat, a black cloak, and ask these kids, what are they doing with his tradition? How are they doing as a church? What are you doing? And so forth. And yet, at the same time, encourage them and celebrate that they're there at Camp Egan doing what they're doing. And so just to be around John Wesley and then Mr. B. Looney, because then he walks out and then he comes back with all his balloons, and he'll make you anything you want, a guitar, helicopter, whatever you want to do, or a wedding ring. He can make you a wedding ring and whatever. And so I would look forward to just being at Camp Egan with Mr. B. Looney.
So one of the things that you mentioned is having a lay helper participate alongside with confirmation, and also the Friends in Faith, kind of this faith sponsor from within the congregation. So it sounds like adults play a pretty active role in the confirmation process for youth. And I wonder, it sounds like you've gotten a lot out of it that you've learned from the kids. What else do adults get out of this process of being a friend in faith or helping with confirmation?
Yeah, that, like I said, the kids will have another friend in the church is the main thing to me. But again, it's just a chance to back off and raise all these faith questions again. Where are you right now? It's saying there aren't any right answers, just where are you relative to these topics and subjects right now? And the laymen are asked to witness to that. The parents are asked to witness to that. The kids are too. And anyway, that's the main thing, is just the chance to think that through again with the kids.
I remember being a sixth grader and having my friend in faith, Jackie Reichman, and we had an assignment to talk on the phone or have lunch together or visit some way or another, at least I think 3 times a semester. And I remember thinking, wow, this is really interesting to kind of be forced to articulate what I'm thinking about certain things. I can talk about things with my parents, and they read my shorthand. They know what I mean. Well, I thought they knew what I meant. I guess probably they had no idea what I meant half the time. But really, I'm having kind of an adult type friendship with this person. And the great thing about my friend in faith is I'm still friends with her. And now I'm working at the church where she attends and sings in the choir. And through that relationship, I became really close with her daughter when we were in junior high and then high school. And we did all the church things together, and I'd spend the night out at their house. And so it was a great doorway into a wonderful friendship, but also to have the opportunity to hear from an adult who's not your parent about how they have come to faith. She was married to someone who had transitioned from Judaism after he married her. So that was a fascinating story to me. My parents had not had that experience, so to hear her side of faith was just great, and I really cherished that.
So for a family with, a 6th grade age child who maybe has loosely participated in church and is like, well, we haven't really come enough to enroll our kid in confirmation, what would you tell that family?
Boo, come on down.
We don't ask the kids if they want to be United States citizens. They're Americans. We want them to salute the flag and sing the national anthem. We don't ask them if they want to go to school. They're going to show up in preschool and kindergarten, and so we're not going to leave whether they're going to be a Christian or not as a question. And so here's how we do that. You get the kids to come to something like confirmation so they can own for themselves what all this Christian stuff is about and how we express that as a United Methodist. And here's really a fortunate chance to let your kid do that. And they can still say no at the end if they don't want to do all this stuff, fine. But the majority of them get caught up in it, and everybody else is doing it, and so I think I will too. And so that's what I would say to them. We don't leave this up to them. We're going to make Christians out of them.
I'd like to add 2 things. If you feel ashamed or insecure about the fact that you haven't been to church much or ever, that shouldn't hold you back from coming. There's not a diagnostic test at the beginning to see who has their Bible verses all memorized and who doesn't. It's really everybody starts from the same spot, whether you've been here every Sunday of your little life or you've never been here at all. So there's no hierarchy in that way. And I had a kid who's now an adult, a total adult, at my church in Norman, who was from a 2-faith household. Mom had grown up Lutheran and Dad had grown up Jewish, but they came to our church most of the time. And at the end of the confirmation time, he said, I really do not feel like I want to join the church. I still want these to be my friends, and I'm going to still attend, but the Jewish faith is very important to me, and I don't think I'm ready to make any kind of decision. So when we had Confirmation Sunday, we did a separate prayer for him, and everybody got some kind of little token, and he got one too. But I wrote a unique prayer for him that we bless him on his journey and celebrate the diversity of his family. He was okay with that. We didn't spring that on him either. But I thought that was very grown up of him to come to that decision at that time. So nobody's holding anybody's head under the faucet and saying, we won't turn it off till you say yes or anything.
And that reminds me of the whole group of confirmands who last year chose to not become members of the Methodist Church out of a statement in response to the General Conference decision. And so they collectively made that decision that they weren't going to join or participate in the church in that way until some things that they felt were wrong were addressed. So I think that is a good point, that it is an opportunity for youth to really make an informed decision about their role within the church and within the faith.
And to me, that's a strong Christian witness.
Yes.
Even though they were saying, I'm not going to join the church, that was a well thought out protest that they were making. And 50-year-olds do that kind of thing.
Do either of you have anything else you'd like to add about confirmation?
I think it was the Barna group, the statistics and research group, that determined a long time ago, if you don't sort of catch kids and engage them at about age 6, grade 6 or grade 7, you're going to lose them. This is a prime age to do this. If you say we're going to wait till you're 19 and home in the summer from college, that's an iffy time to get a really strong group of people. So I'm not trying to say we've got to get them when they're young and innocent and don't know what's coming and indoctrinate them, but I am saying they are a captive audience at that time. And so they're living at home, they're young, they're bright, as you said, they're very well informed, and their minds are growing, and it's a great time to educate them about what this household believes. And then as they mature as adolescents and then adults, they can decide. Still, like Guy said, it's never completely over. We grow and we evolve as we go along. So they can decide later if I still believe the things that I professed at the time of my baptism and then at the time of my confirmation too. So it's hard to turn your back on a belief system that you don't know anything about. So let's teach them what Christianity is before they decide they're going to go a different way or no way.
Yeah, Mary and Joseph took their 12-year-old kid, down to the temple so he could ask questions. And his questions perplexed even his teacher. And to me, that's where, and also that developmentally, the kids are ready for this kind of thing, to begin to think abstractly. They've been elementary kids thinking very concretely. Now they can look outside themselves and abstract things. And so it's a point where they're really ready to do that. And like I said, they're as informed as any group that's ever been. And we had a send-out we did every Sunday, John Wesley's rule. If you'd like for us to share that with you, I could have John Wesley say a deal and we would respond.
Okay, so go for it.
You want me to be John Wesley?
There you go, John.
Okay. I never heard him speak, so I don't know how low his voice was. His rule was, do all the good you can.
Do all the good you can.
By all the means you can.
By all the means you can.
In all the ways you can.
In all the ways you can.
In all the places you can.
In all the places you can.
At all the times you can.
At all the times you can.
To all the people you can.
To all the people you can.
As long as ever you can.
As long as ever you can. Amen.
Amen.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been the Ascends at Boston Avenue podcast. We're at Boston Avenue United Methodist Church, located at 1301 South Boston Avenue in downtown Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you would like to see what's going on here, you can go ahead and go to the Facebook page. We have all types of information so you can see what's happening at our church. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next time.